What's up, everybody? Don't know if I should say this is good news or bad news, but there is a typhoon hitting Hong Kong at the moment, which means that my flight was cancelled and I'm not going to be flying until a couple of days later. And so here comes the daily video. So speaking about yesterday, once price actually filled this in, you got a CISD and price started heading lower. Again, because of the low probability market conditions yesterday, the move wasn't actually very huge. This is a prime example of the idea could be great, the execution could be great, but just depending on the day that you're trading it, the results may vary a lot. So yesterday is a really good example of that. And so that puts us up to 108 wins out of the last 133 trades since I publicly started tracking all of these calls since February. So if you're new to this channel, just understand that you're probably at the right place because we tend to be right more often than we are wrong. But today, let's dive into that intraday setup for Bitcoin. Going to take a look at Ethereum, going to take a look at Solana as well. Anyways, starting things off on the weekly chart, again, we are still bullish until otherwise proven. So far, the price is just kind of like retracing. You can't really see much on the weekly chart other than the fact that we have filled in this higher time frame bullish order block right here, which means everything is supposed to be going higher. In fact, even in terms of market structure, you are still looking exceptional. But it's when you go down into the daily chart where things start to become a little bit more clear, because right now price is retracing into this bullish order block right here, which means that technically we're supposed to look for price to pump from that point outwards. Problem is, yesterday's daily bias was bearish, and that's why we ended up taking a short trade. And because of that, yesterday's candle closed bearish, which means today's candle was supposed to be looking for more downside. The thing is, that downside objective technically has already been taken because you have already taken out the previous daily low. Regardless though, I don't think we still have enough confirmation to dive into a long today, even though we have news for today. If you take a look here, today at 9:45 a.m. you have two pieces of USD news as well as another one at 12:35. This is much more significant compared to this one. And because we have late news today, you could expect the price to actually kind of do a longer setup / a longer accumulation, setting things up for price action. So essentially, the way this works is that on days where there is news coming at a later time, which is usually after 12 p.m., you can expect the New York morning as well as the London session to kind of be an extended accumulation. And let's just take a look if that is in fact the case. So far, London has been, pretty choppy, like as you can see right here. It's not really doing much, although so far you are trading above the Asia highs, which is a sign that could potentially lead to more downside today. So what you are potentially going to look for in terms of the 1 hourly chart is that if you were to sweep out this high right here, whilst filling in all of this imbalance above here, then you're going to want to look for a short, just like what we did yesterday. Remember, this call from yesterday was that price will fill this level in and then you're going to go down. Same thing for today, because yesterday's daily candle closed bearish. Today's daily bias is bearish. You're trading above the Asia highs. London tends to be the manipulation session, which also means that this could be a AM and then potentially another M, because we have late news. This is possible before distribution towards the downside. So that's going to be the setup in general that you're going to want to look for. The only thing that I would watch out for is the fact that with this candle close right here, we haven't yet gotten a CISD. So you could technically say that candle close above here is already CISD, but ideally, let's try to wait for this to happen. So as you can see right here, the candle body here is pretty much equal. Yes, CISD has happened. You are already bullish in terms of the 1 hourly chart. Problem is, daily bias is still heading towards the downside, and we do not yet have enough confirmation that we will indeed be going up. My best advice, if it was me, I would wait till tomorrow. If today's candle closes bullish, chances are tomorrow is going to be very bullish and it's going to be much more straightforward of a day compared to today. Now, if you are itching to get into a trade, the best course of action is to observe what is going to happen at the hour before news till the hour after news. So because we have two pieces of news today, one at 9:45 and the other one at 12:30, you are going to want to start heading into the markets at around 8:30 a.m. and see if there is a potential move. So there are two ways that this is potentially going to play out. A is that at 8:45 or 8:30, you're going to retrace back into this level, or actually, let's go down into the lower time frames. Potentially, you're going to retrace into, let's say this order block right here, and then you start showing willingness to go towards the upside. This will tell you that the morning news movement is going to be towards the upside. On the flip side, if 8:30 a.m. you have already filled this in and you've started to show some willingness that the market is going to go down, then obviously that is going to be the ideal setup. One thing's for sure though, I am going to be going onto Twitter at _the_crypto, posting some live trades. If we do get any opportunities, I'm going to keep you guys updated as well. So feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'm going to put the link in the description down below. But otherwise, just understand that today is one of those days that is like, we have reason to believe that it's going up. We also have a valid thesis that the price is going to go down. Obviously, not every day is like this. In fact, there are many days where, things are so straightforward, with or without news, that I can make a call really easily. Right now, if I had somewhere that I'm leaning towards, is the fact that it is definitely going to be towards the downside, but that's purely because of the system that demands time frame alignment, which means that if the 1 hourly is going short, which also means that because the daily chart is pointing towards the downside, and so far the 1 hourly chart is also kind of pointing towards the downside, if you disregard the CSD right here, then what we want to look for is for price to come into a 1 hourly bearish PDRA to show a 5-minute change in state of delivery, and then that's going to be the setup. So this is purely following the system. Now, if I had my own opinion, like, of course, like, the daily order blocks has been filled, the weekly order blocks have been filled, the 1 hourly is also, kind of starting with a CSD, but I have to admit, when it comes to trading, the proper course of action is never to trade what you want to see from the market, but rather to trade what the market is trying to tell you. There's been so many instances where I thought I was better than the market, and I thought I was smart. Maybe I was on a winning streak or whatever, and I'll just trade whatever opinion that I have just to end up getting burned. So I've learned that the hard way, and that's not something that I would recommend if your goal is to make money from trading. So with that said, I'm going to focus on what the system is showing me. I'm going to focus on the fact that in terms of 1 hourly, sure, we may have started to get a change in state of delivery, but overall, you're still looking pretty bearish, and ideally, you want to get a nice bullish daily candle close towards the upside today before you start considering the fact that you are going to go long. So purely based on the system, again, I'm looking for short, but in the hour before and after news, if, price is kind of like showing a willingness that, it's going to go towards the upside, then I'll make that update on Twitter. Now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at Ethereum real quick. So far, starting things off on a 1 hourly chart, you have just filled in this failure gap right here, which again means that there is potential for further downside. Yesterday's daily candle closed pretty bearish. You've already swept out the liquidity right here, so potentially not too much downside movement remaining. There is a risk that you are forming some kind of a head and shoulders pattern here. So I'm going to say that this is the neckline, and there is a pretty decent probability that you are going to break below the neckline sometime today or tomorrow. Either way, with Ethereum, it's definitely looking a lot more bearish, and perhaps this can be a sign that confirms that Bitcoin is in fact bearish as well. So right now, you've just filled in this bearish failure gap right here. Let's take a look. London has been sweeping above the Asia highs. This is your sweep, and right now you have just formed a change in state of delivery, followed by having a strong high. A strong high, by the way, is just a high that has swept liquidity, which makes this unlikely to be revisited because all of the people have already been stopped out, and that's a really good sign. If you are going to take a short here, placing a stop above here, this will be a valid setup. Essentially, the way that this is going to look like is you take your entry here, you place your stop above there, and you target 2R. The reason why I target 2R always is that this is going to be a much more consistent way of making trades, because the mistake that a lot of people make is that, when you target or when you set your targets way too far away, you run into the risk of, your targets not hitting, and then you eventually getting stopped out. And if there's anything I can tell you about trading psychology, is that the more you win, the better you feel, the more confident you are as a trader, the more likely you're going to stick to this game known as trading. But if you aim for targets that are way too far and you keep getting stopped out, guess what's going to happen to your motivation? Obviously, you're going to feel like you suck at this, but in reality, it could be just because you're setting your targets way too far. So anyways, this is already a valid setup. In this case, like, you could potentially say that Ethereum is like Bitcoin is also going to go towards the downside. But again, like, I will be taking a little small position here on Ethereum. Chances are by the time you watch this video though, it's going to be over already, but just understand that again, the setup's pretty straightforward today. Solana, on the other hand, I probably wouldn't lean towards a short because the Asia high has not yet been taken. But let's go into the 1 hourly chart to see if we can identify something better. So Solana is just straight up in bearish order flow at the moment. From what I can see, this has been swept already. So yeah, Solana is also pretty straightforward, but I would personally focus on Ethereum and Bitcoin today, just because it's a little bit clearer. The fact that, the Asia high has been swept, the fact that, order flow is bearish. Ethereum's looking the most bearish out of the bunch. Bitcoin's potentially looking the most bullish out of the bunch. So if you have, if you end up taking a long trade, then focus on Bitcoin. If you end up taking a short trade, focus on Ethereum. And I think that's going to conclude it for this video. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow. safe trading today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.